Okay, so this is a key on the worksheet dealing with topic 43, which is on parallel and perpendicular lines. So in number one, you're given two lines here, and you're told that this line contains these 2 points and this line contains these 2 points. And you want to determine if the two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. And then you got to show the work. All right, so you can't just indicate the answer. It does say show work. So one thing you got to remember, though, is this. You have to remember that parallel lines have equal slopes, and perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite reciprocals of each other. The other thing you have to notice is this. If you're going to determine if two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, notice in these two statements here, you see the word slopes, right? See the word slope. So you have to find the slope of these two lines. Well, if 2 points are given, then to find the slope, you're going to use the slope formula. So in part A and B, in both cases, you're going to use the slope formula. So let's go ahead and remind ourselves what the slope formula is. So if you're given 2 points on a line, which you are, the slope formula is y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. One thing you got to remember is that the order in which you write this does matter. So if you start with y2 in the numerator, then you must start with x2 in the denominator. Now, it does not matter. You could say y1 subtract y2 instead of y2 subtract y1, but just like I said, the order is going to matter at this point in the denominator. If you start with y1, you must start with x1. Okay? All right, so it does matter how you write this. Okay, so in 1a, you're told that line 1 contains these 2 points. You're given it, the 2 points are 4, negative 3, and 6, 2. So let's find the slope of line 1 first. Now, for some students, it helps if you label these points. So x1, y1, x2, y2. And let's find the slope. So the slope equals, let's start with y2. So I get 2 subtract the other y coordinates. So 2 subtract a negative 3. Make sure you're careful. 2 subtract a negative 3. y2 minus y1. So the y coordinates go in the numerator, change in y. And the denominator is change in x. So you're going to subtract the x coordinates. But remember, the order matters. So since I started at y2, I have to start with 6. So you're going to say 6 subtract the other x coordinate, which is 4. Let's go ahead and simplify the numerator. 2 subtract a negative 3 means 2 plus the opposite of 3, so that's 2 plus 3. And then 6 subtract 4 is 2. So I get what? 5 halves? So the slope of line 1 is 5 halves. Now we got to find the slope of line 2. So let's go ahead and do line 2. So line 2, the 2 points here are 3, negative 2, and the other one is 13, 2. All right? And so let's go ahead and label these again, just like we did for line 1. So we have x1, y1, x2, y2. So let's find the slope of that one, of line 2. So the slope formula, let's do y2 first. So y2 is 2, subtract the other y coordinate, which is negative 2, divided by, now since I started with y2, I have to start with x2 first. 13 subtract the other x coordinate, which is 3. So 2 subtract a negative 2 means 2 plus the opposite of negative 2, so that's 2 plus 2. And then 13 subtract 3 is 10, so I get 2 plus 2 is 4, so I get 4 tenths. Reduce is 2 fifths. Okay? Now let's compare the slopes of these two lines. The slope of the first line is 5 halves. The slope of the second line is 2 fifths. They're reciprocals, but are they opposite reciprocals? And the answer is no, right? So then the answer you're going to say will be neither. So that's neither. Okay? So in 1A, the answer is neither. So remember the work, though. You got to show the work. Make sure you show work. So you had to show the work you did to find the slope of each. All right, let's do B. So in B, I'm going to go ahead and use another sheet of paper. Well, I could probably do that here. So let's do B here. So in 1B, your 2 points for line 1 are 2, negative 5, and 6, 2. So let's call this x1, y1, x2, y2. So let's find the slope. So the slope of that line, using the slope formula, we're going to say y2 subtract y1. So you start with y2, which is 2. subtract y1, which is negative 5, right? Now, since it started with y2, I have to start with x2. That does matter. So I'm going to say 6 subtract the other x coordinate, which is 2. So 2 subtract a negative 5 means 2 plus 5. 6 subtract 2 is 4. 2 plus 5 is 7, so I get 7/4. All right, so the slope of line 1 is 7/4. Now let's find the slope of line 2. So the 2 points on line 2 are 4, -3 and 8, 4. So 8, 4. So let's go ahead and label these x1, y1, x2, y2. I'm going to use the slope formula again. So the slope of the line 2 is going to be y2, which is 4, subtract y1, which is 4, right? Divided by x2, which is 8, subtract 4. So 4, I'm sorry, I didn't mean 4. That's a -3, right? So be careful. So 4 subtract y1, which is, so it's y2 minus y1. So 4 subtract -3, excuse me. So that's 4 subtract -3, so that's 4 plus 3, which is 7. And then 8 subtract 4, which is 4, right? Okay, so y2 subtract y1. So 4 subtract -3, and then 8 x2 subtract x1, so 8 subtract 4. And then what do you notice about those two slopes? So the slope of line 1 is 7/4, the slope of line 2 is 7/4, so the slopes are equal, right? So what can you tell me about those two lines? If the slopes are equal, then the lines are parallel. All right? So the answer, we're going to say parallel. All right, the slopes are equal. Okay, so for part B, the answer is parallel. Those two lines are parallel since they have equal slopes. All right, so there's your work. That was your work. So that's what you would show. Okay, now in number 2, it says determine if the two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither. Now it says to explain your answer. Okay, so don't just put parallel, perpendicular, or whatever it may be. Explain. It says to explain. So that's important. Okay, so notice explain your answer to receive all points. Okay, so notice that in part A, these two equations are in slope-intercept form. So remember, slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b, slope-intercept form. And so since those are in slope-intercept form, the coefficient of x is your slope. So if you're going to determine if two lines are parallel, perpendicular, or neither, you need to know the slope. So the slope of this line is 2/3, right? And what about the slope of that line? Well, the slope of that line is also 2/3. So what can you tell me about the two lines here? Are the two lines parallel, perpendicular, or neither? They are parallel. So you're going to say parallel, and you're going to say since both slopes are equal. All right, in fact, they are 2/3 each. Okay, so the slope of each one's 2/3. So both slopes are equal. Okay, in part B, so remember, for each of those, you got to find the slope. Since those are equations and not points, see, if they're points, you're going to use the slope formula. Here, if those are equations, you're going to write this in slope-intercept form. So in this one, and let me go ahead and do that here. So let's go do that here. So 2y equals 7x plus 2. So if I'm going to get y by itself, I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I get y equals 7/2 x, 7/2 x, plus, and then 2 divided by 2 is 1, right? So the slope of this line is 7/2. Now let's do this one. So the slope of this line, so I get 7y equals 2x minus 3. Divide both sides by 7. I get y equals 2/7 x, 2/7 x minus 3/7. So the slope of this line is 2/7. So the slope of this line is 7/2. The slope of this line is 2/7, right? So are those two slopes equal? Nope. Are those two slopes opposite? They're reciprocals, but are they opposite reciprocals? And the answer is no. So you're going to say neither, and your explanation, here's your work, your explanation would say the slopes are neither equal nor opposite reciprocals. I'm abbreviating here. Opposite reciprocals, since the slope of the first line is 7/2 and the slope of the second line is 2/3. Since the slope of one line, just call it one line, is, what was it, 7/2, and the other is 2/7. Okay? All right. So I didn't have enough room, so I apologize for these little arrows. So to do part B, you had to get this in slope-intercept form, so that's what you saw here. Then you can find the slope. So the slope of this line is 7/2. The slope of this line is 2/7. And so since the slopes are not equal, and since the slopes are not opposite reciprocals, then you're going to say those two lines are neither. Okay? All right, now let's do part C. So in part C, let's go ahead and get this in slope-intercept form. So we have 3x minus 2y equal 4. All right. I'm going to go ahead and bring the 2y to the other side. So I'm going to add 2y to both sides, just like this. Oops, sorry. Add 2y. And when I do that, I get 3x equals 2y plus 4. Subtracting 4 now, I get 3x minus 4 equals 2y, right? And remember, I'm going to rewrite this because of the transitive property. So if 3x minus 4 equals 2y, then 2y must equal 3x minus 4. And so what I'm going to do now is divide both sides by 2. And so I get y equals 3/2 x, 3/2 x minus, and then 4 divided by 2 is 2. So the slope of this line is 3/2. Okay? All right, I'm running out of space here. Now let's go ahead and do this one. So over here, I have 6x plus 9y equal 18. Subtracting 6x from both sides, I get 9y equals a negative 6x plus 18. Dividing both sides by 9, okay, to get y by itself, slope-intercept form, I get y equals negative 6/9 x, negative 6/9 x plus 18 divided by 9 is 2, right? 18 divided by 9 is 2. Let's go ahead and reduce this, though. So I get y equals, they're both divisible by 3, so negative 6 divided by 3 is a negative 2. 9 divided by 3 is 3. I get negative 2/3 x plus 2. So now the slope of this line right here is negative 2/3. All right, so now the slope of this line is 3/2. The slope of this line is negative 2/3. So what do you notice about those two slopes? They're not equal, but are they opposite reciprocals? This is 3/2. This is a negative 2/3, and the answer is yes. So the answer is perpendicular, perpendicular. And your explanation, you would say, I have no room. So let's do that here. Is that here? So the explanation would be so there's a work, and so the explanation would be, well, the slope of one line is negative 3/2, and the slope of the other line is negative 2/3, and those are opposite reciprocals. So since the slopes are opposite reciprocals. Okay, so I didn't have enough room to do all this, so I apologize. All right, well, that is the key to this worksheet.